Hello and assalamu alaikum. Today I want to talk about some stuff. So let's get into it. Let's take Zohran Mamdani first. As you know, or might not know, Zohran Mamdani is the now Democratic nominee from the state of New York in America for the mayoral election coming in November this year. He beat the ex-governor Andrew Cuomo in the Democratic primary recently, and that was a big deal. But that's not the reason Zohran Mamdani is the talk of the town for now. It's again for all the wrong reasons. We're living in a world where people only become famous perhaps for the wrong reasons. Not always, but yeah, most of the time. So Zohran Mamdani is famous because there has been a really uh, vicious campaign going on against him after he won the primary. I want to get into some of the reasons why this has happened. So, my cumulative assessment, despite giving enough leeway to those with legitimate concerns about Mamdani, is that it is mostly a bigoted and Islamophobic campaign. There are policy decisions that you can object and have concerns with when it comes to any candidate, may it be Democratic, Republican. Within Democratic Party, you can there are moderates, there are uh, socialists, and there are many other um, members of other persuasions right in there. But that portion of dissenters is quite small in my estimation. So most of the people that have come forward are coming out with the most stupid of reasons and bigoted of attacks. So it is quite a comic thing for me to notice now that the state of Islam in America and the Western world in general is that people are considered acceptable to lead them or even to become marginally important in America right now are only those that prove that they are not perhaps good Muslims, in quotes, in air quotes, good Muslims. And why in air quotes? Because they consider good Muslims to be those that, in their perception, are non adherents, are non conservatives, adopt the Western values. And by Western values, I'm not talking about being truthful and being kind and stuff like that. I'm talking about are there women revealing enough of their skin? Uh, are they standing for LGBT rights? And other stuff like this, that goes against the core teachings of Islam in their perception. And most of them are right also. But anyhow, the funniest things are happening with Mamdani right now. His wife has become an object of obsession. People, many notable people started sharing a photograph of the Statue of Liberty in a burqa, uh, perhaps signaling that if Mamdani wins, this is the future that America must be looking at. And that was countered very effectively by those people who knew what kind of life, personal life, Mamdani spent and what kind of values he holds. And people started sharing pictures of his wife, who is a very liberal kind of a Muslim. Um, uh, I think she's from Syria or some similar some similar surroundings. I think her name is Rama Duwaji, and she it was her picture started floating, signaling to the West that look at this woman. Muslims are just like normal people. Their wives can be adherents. They themselves can be adherents to, any particular religion, or they are just culturally Muslims or Christian and stuff like that, like any other religion. So normalcy in America is now perhaps tied to the assessment that this person is not an adherent Muslim in their perception. And the Islamists in the West also do not leave any stone unturned to support these kind of people by also calling such people out that they are not actually good Muslims and they're standing for something that goes against their beliefs and stuff like that. I don't want to get into that right now, But when an entire society is built around the idea, especially pertaining a particular religion, uh, in this scenario, Islam, that an only acceptable Muslim is a Muslim that does not adhere to the fundamentals of that religion, then there is a problem in that society. And that will be the focus of my some rants in the future. But now I want to move ahead. And it's actually another common thing that is happening right now is because Mamdani is being labeled as a good Muslim in the sight of the West. I think it was Sana Saeed who came forward, uh, highlighting the fact that it was Mamdani's father, Mahmoud Mamdani, that actually in 2005 came out with a book known as Good Muslim, Bad Muslim, pointing out that how the West was misinterpreting this entire, mm, you know, clash that is happening between the West and the East right now, or the West and the Muslims right now, pointing out that Americans are perhaps focusing, are perhaps looking at the Muslim society from a lens of culture and civilization. The entire clash of civilization stuff, instead of a political lens. Most of the objections and concerns that Muslims have with the West are not cultural or civilizational, but rather political. Some political choices made by America as the big brother of the world rubbed them the wrong way, stepped on their toes, and it seemed like they were resisting some of those steps taken by the Western world in general and America in particular, and that was labeled as a clash of civilization and cultures and stuff like that. So it was kind of ironic that Sana Saeed pointed it out. It was the irony she was pointing out, that the person who wrote the book on this, that we should not classify Muslims as good and bad because based on civilization and cultural aspects, his own son is being labeled as a good Muslim, and the entire formula is being used against him. So that is kind of ironic for the people who know about the book and this entire way of looking at things. But that was something that amused me also. I wanted to share it with the public. So let's talk about Mamdani a bit. Okay, we know that he's fighting for the causes of the masses because his whole campaign is built around how pricey life in New York has become, and that is no hidden secret. But yeah, of course, solutions presented to solve this problem can be different from different people. And of course, if people voted for him over Cuomo or the present mayor Eric Adams, of course, it means that his solutions were resonating with the masses. Anyhow, he's championing the causes of the common man. So, an attack being hurled at him is that he does not come from the downtrodden people at all. He has been from among the haves all his life. People are pointing out how his father is a tenured professor at a famous university, and how his mother was a Bollywood director or producer, perhaps an Oscar nominated director or producer, being at that. So he comes from money. The outlook that he's trying to perhaps pretend is that he comes from the masses, he comes from third world country, he comes from the downtrodden people. That is why he's championing their cause. I don't think he has signaled any of that. He has never denied his roots or his coming from relative money. But people are trying and twisting it into something that he has not claimed. Yes, he comes from an affluent past, but championing the causes of the poor does not necessitate you being poor in the first place. So that's also a very, I'd say, pathetic kind of an attack. So Mamdani's big problems that I foresee are going to happen in their society are the three big no-nos that we all know are the big no-nos in America. Number one is Islam. It's a predominantly Christian country, a country that actually has the largest population of the most evangelical Protestants in the entire world. The biggest, perhaps, uh, group of them that believes in an apocalypse in a certain manner, and that is, dispensationalism, an ideology I focus on in my other videos, and will be talking about it more in my other videos. But it's not a normal Christian country, even it's a super Christian country, and in that country, Islam is a big no-no. They have been fighting perhaps a war against Islam for the past 2-3 decades. So if a person comes forward being a Muslim, he should be expecting this attack. I'm not talking about the morality of it. It is, of course, very unethical, but that is a concern that not only Republicans but other uh, bigots in the country would love to pounce on and exploit, which they are doing. The second big no-no is socialism. Again, it's a proud capitalistic country, perhaps the leader of capitalism in the entire Western world, and it had a history of being the frontline state against communism and against Soviet Union, and the one that defeated actually defeated Soviet Union with the help of Afghan Muslims and many other nations across the world. So if you are a socialist in the perhaps most capitalistic country and state of that country, this is an attack you should be expecting, and that is happening as we speak. And the third is, of course, within the Palestine-Israel divide, if you stand with Palestine, this is again a big no-no. People have to bend the knee to Israel in their politics, as we saw in one of the primary televised program, in which everybody was claiming that their first visit would be to Israel after being elected as mayor, and Mamdani was the only one who said that he would not be visiting Israel. Instead, he'd be focusing on his constituents here within the 5 boroughs of New York. So again, this is the third big no-no. And Mamdani happens to manifest all three of them. He embodies the trifecta. He's a Muslim, he's a socialist, and a Palestine defending politician, as opposed to Israel. Especially in the context of the Israel-Gaza war that is going on right now. And he actually brought a fourth big no-no into the mix just recently. He appeared in the program, perhaps in a short video filmed by somebody, in which he was eating rice with his bare hands. Wasn't using any utensils. Oh my God, that was Obama stands root conspiracy all over again. People are coming at him in the most revealing and funniest ways, and sparking a discussion that whether rice should be eaten with hands or not. I mean, I'm sure people familiar with third world mannerisms know that sometimes it only happens sometimes that people do this stuff. We also eat rice with spoons and forks. Sometimes we don't. It's a kind of what can I say? Kind of a liberating act when you eat it with your bare hands. It's not something that is something starkly different from the Western values. Yeah, we use utensils when we eat sticky food as well, but sometimes it's quite liberating to eat it that way as well. But these are the kind of things that he's being targeted for. So you can imagine the campaign that is going on against him. They're going to play dirty. I'm talking about his opponents. They're going to play dirty and stupid. I mean, hilarious at times, but still stick with the stuff, because it is going to get even more funnier as we move closer to the closer to the mayoral election. So what I think right now is going to happen is, I want Mamdani to get elected, because he's only going to be the second candidate in perhaps the most important cities of the world, one of the most important cities of the world, because if there was ever a capital of the entire world, a capital city of the entire world, it will be either London or New York. And in London, there's already a Muslim socialist or social democrat that has been the mayor for the past, I think, 10 years or so, who was recently knighted as well. Of course, I'm talking about Sadiq Khan, and he's been doing a great job. People have been admiring him and re-electing him. So this is the second city, again another most important city in the West, that a mayoral candidate with the same kind of vibes and ideologies, socialism, Islam, mixed with support for Palestine, is coming to the fore. So as opposed to Britain, which, in my perception and assessment, is much more, uh, I want to avoid saying the word woke, but I wanted to sound positive, that they are more liberal and more educated there in Europe in general and Britain. In America, it's much like my own country, Pakistan, in certain aspects, is that the average intellectual level is not that high as in other European countries. So in New York, it is going to be a real challenge for him to get elected because of these trifecta or the four things that I just mentioned, which are big no-nos in America, especially right now when perhaps US, with the help of Israel, is going to be carving out more land from the Arab states. I'm particularly talking about Gaza and Palestine, because the plan seems to be afoot that has been labeled in many different ways, but seems like something akin to ethnic cleansing. So while America is collaborating with Israel to bring about that kind of stuff, in this era, a person with such sort of beliefs to be coming into power in New York seems a distant reality for me, at least. And even if he comes into power, it is going to be a very bumpy ride, because a lot of stuff is going to be happening, and especially under the Trump administration, with him announcing, uh, you know, non-compliance with the ICE raids and stuff like that, uh, and favoring Palestine over Israel. It is going to be a hell of a ride for him to survive, even if he gets elected in New York. But this is about his prospects as the mayoral candidate. I know the prospects are further, uh, you know, made difficult by the aspect that perhaps Andrew Cuomo isn't also conceding. He might appear on the ballot in November, and Eric Adams, who is no longer the Democratic nominee but was a Democratic mayor in 2021, because of allegations of corruption against him, and then later his cozying up to Trump. Now, the Democratic nominee is now Mamdani, but Eric Adams might appear as an independent on the. He will be appearing as an independent on the ballot paper. So it is going to be really tough for him to beat those two, Andrew Cuomo and Eric Adams, if they're in competition with him. In fact, now that I recall, I think Bill Ackman, the billionaire, right-wing guy, he recently announced, perhaps one of his tweets was really, amazing, how blatant and brazen these people are when it comes to targeting Muslims. His first tweet about a few days ago about Mamdani was that he has gotten some hope even after losing New York to Mamdani in the primary, because perhaps he was asserting that he's found out some legal lacuna to target the nationality and citizenship of Mamdani. I don't know whether he'll go down that route or not, but that is once again a really dirty tactic which these people don't avoid. They're shameless in such sort of the whole worldview is built around this shamelessness, and they've got voters that support them in this. So what can we say? But recently, I think I'm recalling there was a tweet that he sat down with Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo and convinced Andrew Cuomo to drop out of the race so that the chances of Eric Adams actually winning become greater, higher. So, oligarchy is at play, full throttle, no holds barred, and they aren't hiding anything. So it will be a really dirty fight. Mamdani should gear up for it, and I think Mamdani would do better for the New Yorkers, and my support is with him. Having said that, I have got two major concerns with Mamdani, and actually these are not only with Mamdani but rather with Muslims in general. Number one of those concerns is why socialism. I know I'm not going to quibble over terminology here. There is difference between communism and socialism, and particularly the label democratic socialist or social democrat. That is kind of something that is acceptable perhaps in the West, or at least relatively acceptable as compared to simply calling somebody a socialist or communist. But my question is, why socialism? This question is for both Sadiq Khan also and Mamdani also. I want to highlight the fact here that if you have been following my videos, I have shown how, and actually I've resolved this age-old mystery of the second coming of Jesus Christ and the Antichrist. In Islam, the details for such an event were so massive and so detailed that it became quite obvious that it was actually talking about communism as the Antichrist and Jesus as the Western world led by America that came out against communism. And communism was manifested by Soviet Union, and it was defeated by Muslims and Christians in collaboration with each other, with America leading the charge. So that is what Jesus, the second coming of Jesus, was referring to. So you can watch my videos for that. But what I pointed out through religious angle as well, and in general also, as far as the geopolitical realities and the histories are concerned, communism and socialism is a big problem for humanity. Its entire existence depends on partial realization of reality. That is what was described as one-eyed Antichrist in Islam. It described the Antichrist as having one eye. Why? Because it was a symbolic way of referring how the communists would only be reaching to a partial view of reality, skipping over and being blindsided by the other facts of human nature that they would just really overlook and not factor in at all. So socialism and communism is a big problem, not only as far as the history of the world is concerned, but as a good Muslim also. There is no place for communism or socialism in their actual sense in Islam. Yes, I understand that people use these terminologies differently in the present world. And by Democrat, Socialist, or Social Democrats, they mean something more akin to, using public money or taxing people to actually support the poor people. You can do that in capitalism as well. Raising taxes is not something unique to socialism. It happens in capitalism as well. So why socialism? Why do people, Muslims, having good chances of becoming leaders in the developed world, go out and choose these kind of stupid labels of being a socialist? Already Bernie Sanders and AOC are there, proudly socialist, but they are not going to be elected in any, effective role, in any meaningful role in the West, because they are socialists. The entire country is built around a system of life that is staunchly against socialism and communism. So I know I'm not quibbling over terminology here. I know this socialism, that the democratic flavor of socialism has come forward in the past few decades, is not the same as socialism and communism as it was in the yesteryears. But still, my question remains: what is wrong with Muslims in the present world right now? Why aren't they focusing on other aspects of our existence, doing good for people, without going down this rabbit hole of socialism? Please, somebody explain it to me. And the second concern I hold is about his statement of globalize the intifada. I mean, we as Muslims know that when people say and espouse these kind of feelings of globalizing the intifada, they mean something entirely different than what the Christian or the developed Western world hears and interprets it to be. We know intifada means a simple uprising, and uprising in its metaphorical connotation simply means to stand up against a system of exploitation and stuff like that. So that's what perhaps he meant by globalize the intifada. I think he clarified it also. And in case of Palestine also, if this phrase is used, it is used for Palestinians to demand their human rights, and rationally and reasonably getting those rights through political struggle, not some kind of terroristic or insurgency that they want to launch against the system. But Mamdani is a politician. He should be understanding that how important it is to phrase your statements. Why use such a dysphomistic sentence or a label to describe something that could have been described very euphemistically and very, in fact, realistically in some other words? So, globalize the intifada wasn't something that, and isn't something that he should support or describe his movement in this manner. And similarly, socialism, I hope that he drops it and comes out with I know he's a goner. I think he said somewhere in the interview that he has many critiques of capitalism, and did not answer in the affirmative, even when asked directly by a news anchor. So I know he's a goner. But my question is to all Muslims: why socialism, even after we defeated it as the Antichrist? And secondly, please stop using these terminologies if you want to come into positions of power. Terminologies like intifada and stuff like that. So be a normal human being, use rational, reasonable, humanistic language, and co-opting the language of such struggles need not be an essential for launching a campaign to come in a position of power. So this is my humble analysis of the situation that is going on right now. Of course, it's a rapidly developing situation. The US President Donald Trump is coming out against Mamdani with very personal attacks. There are other people. I just recently saw an article written by Douglas Murray. I haven't read it yet, but I'll be reading it and commenting on it in some future video. But Douglas Murray and Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh and many other right-wingers in America are right now coming out against Mamdani in a most vicious campaign. And it is going to get interesting as we move closer to the mayoral election, and I'll be talking about it more in the future. But this is what I had to offer right now.